Welcome to the Fantasy Overwatch Underground, where I bring you low quality production and mediocre fantasy Overwatch advice. Appreciate you tuning in. We finally have week 1 in the books. It's been such a long time coming, and I'm here to bring you some highlights. These highlights are going to be very player centric and focused on people with fantasy value, rather than recapping matches and, looking at meta and comp. Those things are going to be touched on, but this channel is a little bit different. We're looking at individual player focus and how that might impact your fantasy team. So, week to week, you have a chance to improve your fantasy squad through waiver wires, through trades, and I've got a list here. I don't want to waste any time. We're going to get straight to it. I've got 15 transactions that I think you can make. So if you don't want to watch the full thing and you just want the list, here it is for you. Here's my 15 recommendations. Most of these will be supported by clips in the upcoming show. So flash these up on the screen, grab a screenshot, do what you will. Otherwise, we'll be talking through these. The top 5, I'll read off for you. First waiver pickup is ChoiSehWan from the Charge. Number 2, Mmonk on the Hunters. Number 3, Gaebullssi on the Uprising. Number 4 is Elsa. And number 5 and 6 are a package deal. Our wonderful bottom-feeding Los Angeles Valiant. For player number 1, we are going to start with Guangzhou Charge's ChoiSehWan, rookie player. If you've been following this channel, you know that I was a big fan of his this offseason. And I do have him on a couple of my fantasy teams, but I did not expect this. In this clip, we see him on the Tracer, which I entirely did not expect. And you know what? He didn't look half bad. His teammate Eileen is one of my favorite tracers. Top 5, I'll stick with that. I'll say top 5 tracer that I've seen. And the team felt comfortable enough not to even play their historical star tracer player because ChoiSehWan got that. Not only are his mechanics insane, you'll see that he is often the target of Nano on the tracer. So very, very high on his play here. I can't help but show a couple of clips of him just because of how much I loved his play. One more Tracer clip for you where he's going up against Fleta on the opposing Tracer. He's able to find the flank, find low targets. His tracking is unreal, and we'll see he even is able to lob that pulse bomb in to get some solid damage on Fleta. He's not playing Tracer against a bottom-feeding team. He's playing Tracer against Fleta, and he's having some success doing it. In what was probably my single favorite play of the week, he gets a 1v1 against Prophet and just makes Prophet look silly. Prophet, a well-seasoned Tracer player, just can't keep up with him. The funny thing to me here is ChoiSehWan was on my radar not for his Tracer play. I think he's a really, really good Genji, a really, really good Echo player, as well as a Mei. We've seen him play all of those to great effect. So if we're looking at him potentially being his team's Tracer player, which I can't guarantee because I do absolutely love Eileen, I think he's going to be in most metas. And if we see Kaylee struggle, as we have in some of the early matches here, I think ChoiSehWan could be paired up with Eileen in any number of ways. So, fantasy-wise, if you're hurting for a DPS, I see ChoiSehWan as a potential superstar player who may be weighed down by a mediocre to bad team, but should regularly be putting up big fantasy numbers. Number 2 on my list for the week is Mmonk, the late pickup for the Chengdu Hunters, who played flex support for them the entire weekend. We see a nice Bionade there coming out, a nice sleep to shut down Fleta in what could have otherwise been a really dangerous situation. Mmonk gets out of it. He was in a bad spot, used his mechanics, good decision making to survive the situation. The reason why this is important to me is once again in contenders, I very much liked Mmonk's Zenyatta. I thought that he had the better Zenyatta than Farway, but for them to be playing him in a situation where it's primarily going to be Ana, I was very impressed with his Ana play, which frankly I didn't have a lot of confidence in yet. This is one where we can see why the Hunters picked him up, and while I can't promise that he's going to continue to play long-term over Farway, the possibility of getting that starting flex support is huge. So I think, once again, if this is you looking for that support value, then over the course of the season, you've got to go for it. Mmonk might be this year's Crimzo. We'll have to wait and see, though, where he's a late offseason pickup worth quite a bit here. I mentioned his Zenyatta play earlier. He was quick to charging his Transcendence, had it ready for the opportune times, and he's always turning his defense into a strong offense. He follows down the flank, uses his third-person view to know exactly where Crystal is at, or gets a nice call from his team, and immediately secures the kill. Very confidently, too. That's a situation that could have gone poorly against a Widow, but I feel like he knew he had that angle. So Mmonk, one more of those late offseason pickups that I'm a big fan of. As I mentioned before, I've been following him since Chinese Contenders, where he played with Flag Gaming, and he did outplay Farway on the Zenyatta when Farway was on Team CC. So he's got the chops. He hadn't been around the scene as long. I do still love Farway, and if somebody is dropping Farway, I'd recommend picking him up. But at the same time, Mmonk is the current starter, and there's some extreme value to be had there if nobody has picked him up yet. And he does appear to be open in most of my leagues. For number 3 on the list, we're not looking at Owl footage from this week just because the Boston Uprising haven't yet played, and they have announced off-tank pickup Gaebullssi being called up from their academy roster. Here we see him on WGS Phoenix. Follow the White Diva here. He already secures a couple of kills, and we just see a very strong mechanical player, good decision-making, exactly everything that you would want out of your off-tank player. Now, looking at the situation in the late offseason pickup, I must admit, I do really like Punk as a player. Punk and Mmonk rhyming here, my bad. I love Punk as a player, but when we look at what WGS Phoenix has, they've got the coaching connection to Lori, and the rest of the team outside of Color Hex, outside of Fusions, and of course Punk as well, are a Korean team, and I think it's just mathematically it's a lot more likely that he's the one who gets the start here. It's no guaranteed lock-in, but he's only just been added to draft buff after this week since he's been called up and hasn't played yet. Once again, this could be another one who could potentially save your season. No promises, but if we look back on the end of the season, it might be that Gaebullssi is one of those top 10, maybe even better. But let's say top 10, top 15 type tank player. And to be able to get that after a draft in waivers is huge. So this is the reason why we keep track of roster moves, to pick up guys like this. Number 4 on my list is Elsa from Chengdu. I don't have any clips, but as a quick note here, because Chengdu won their matches 3-1 and 3-0 in some really short ones, their players look like they have really low scores. So if there's somebody that didn't pay as close of attention to the matches, doesn't quite realize what the Hunters have to offer, I think their players might be undervalued by people not paying enough attention in your league. So they're definitely worth shooting some trade offers out for. Elsa is not guaranteed to be owned. He probably is, but once again, I really had some thoughts that Late Young might be playing in this double bubble meta, and I think we saw some pretty good play from Elsa. I won't say top tier flex tank play, but Elsa has always looked a little bit bad to me. I say a little bit bad, that's not quite fair phrasing. I'll say, one of those below average tanks. We always try and give everyone credit and say, they're top 10 or whatever, they're average. I think Elsa was below that tier, but the way they dispatched the Dragons this week, and I didn't see Elsa specifically standing out as part of that win, but Elsa definitely carried his weight, so I'm excited about his prospects. Moving on, I am showing some clips here from the game between the Hunters and the Valiant, and the reason I show this is because I actually really like Showcheng. The Valiant, in conversations and interviews that we've seen post week 1, we've definitely seen that the Valiant deserve a little bit of respect. I think, myself included, we all want to hate on this team a little bit for the circumstances, but now that we're sitting here, they didn't look great, but they looked respectable, and that means their players can put up respectable totals. So if you are looking for a tank, Showcheng is another one of my favorites from Chinese Contenders. Recently playing flex tank, and really having Sigma play in Contenders, we now saw Showcheng flex over to the Diva and to the Zarya. And even though the player impact rating just released on Watson was very unfavorable of Showcheng, I'm happy enough. I think Showcheng is a force to be reckoned with and is one of the, I'll say maybe the star player of this team. As the season progresses, we'll see. Maybe they don't have any stars at all. But I'm a fan of the diversity of play that we saw and the aggression, and I think Showcheng is a suitable fill-in if you're hurting at tank right now. As we know in fantasy, main tanks are not quite as valuable because often they're putting up shields and they're not pumping out damage. But in circumstances where you're in a deeper league, or you need to fill in a bye week coming up in one of these upcoming weeks, JJANGGU is really worth a look, as well as Gator. I really think both of them were standout tank players on their teams. JJANGGU obviously in the thriller match of the week against the Shock. Gator less so stood out because of Atlanta's nasty reverse sweep and the circumstances they were in this week. But honestly, I thought Gator stood out as making smart plays across multiple heroes, and last year I really only ever liked his Orisa. So it's never ideal to put in a starting main tank into your fantasy roster, but with some of the deeper leagues and with bye weeks, you don't always have a choice in the matter. I can almost guarantee you that JJANGGU and Gator are going to be available, but on the off chance that they, aren't, good luck. The number 9 transaction I have on my list is to buy low on Birdring. Birdring was surprisingly benched on numerous maps this upcoming week. If we look at players from last year who were rarely benched, Birdring was on that list. Fantastic player. The man needs no introduction. He's an Owl champion. If we look at his history, he's done so much. And to see him benched this week was a huge surprise. There were concerns, specifically stated by DPay when he was doing his power rankings that Birdring himself was not practicing the game enough in the offseason. And whether or not that factors into his being benched, I don't know. It's just one of those fun facts you hear from DPay. But when you watch this guy play, his mechanics are still there. Maybe he's still getting into prime Birdring form. And if we go back to last year, we didn't rate him so highly as, one of the most elite players in fantasy because we've seen a lot of ups and a lot of downs from Birdring. I think the Gladiators had a rough 2-loss week. That's probably not going to happen too much more. But I believe in Birdring. And if someone in your league does not, I would see if you can buy him for pennies on the dollar right now. Don't go and offer a top player for him, but see if you can, trade bait out there, someone who's frustrated and has a hole at tank or support. See if they'll let go of Birdring. While I'm name dropping Birdring, let me quickly throw Lip in there as well. DM played a lot more than I think we all thought, and I think Lip is in a similar situation where I believe in the player, even though the first week was a little bit disappointing. And I would not pay full price on Lip. I think his value dropped significantly this week. I still want him on my team. And if someone else is looking to potentially drop him or trade him, I would definitely like to pick him up. I've already had a couple people asking me in DMs if they should drop Lip. I think that's crazy. See if you can pick him up after someone else has dropped him, or another one of those pennies on the dollar type trades. Moving on through the week, Toronto fairly easily dispatched the Titans, and then they went on to also have the amazing final match of the week where they reverse swept the Atlanta Reign, and it was largely behind Heesu. Heesu last year proved his worth when Carpe, was benched for him around playoff time. We know he's really good, but I still sometimes have it locked in my head that he's just this really good Sombra player. But what we saw this last week was that he can hang with the best of the league at hitscan. I was very, very impressed, not to mention that his teammate, Naist, who I also have a earlier video on, I did not think that he would step up to the level that he did. We know Naist is a very good Mei player, and that's one of his comfort picks. His Tracer, which I didn't really think was Owl level, was pretty solid. So if you drafted Heesu, congrats, hold on, don't let go. I expect a lot more good performances from Heesu. And Naist is another one of those that is worth a waiver wire pickup. I'm not expecting huge things because he is going to be locked in on that Mei, who's his best hero. But if you are looking for, I don't want to say guaranteed points because it's still possible that we see some logics. But for high probability of mediocre points, you could do much worse than Naist. As we know, the Mei doesn't score fantastically well, but I think he looks solid. And as we're going through all of these too, I should briefly mention Edison, who I think is unfortunately droppable. Edison is one of my favorite players from last season, but I am very, very concerned after he did not look very impressive to me on the Tracer, where he normally stands out. I think statistically he had the better showing than Pelican on the hero, but visually, not very impressed. With what we saw from Kai and what we saw from Pelican, I really think Edison plays third fiddle in this DPS lineup and didn't even play in the second matchup against Atlanta. We really only saw Edison in the easier matchup against the Titans. So if I can trade him, I would. I don't think you'll get anything for him now. And even though I say he's droppable, I'm not saying go drop him immediately. But don't let him sit, if there's other good players out there on this list that you might be interested in, I think he's the kind of, questionable dead weight on your roster that you might need to let go. I really hope I'm wrong on this one because Edison last year is one of my absolute favorites, but week 1 was a little bit concerning to me. To round out this video, I've got a couple more hold on tight recommendations here. When I say hold on tight, I really just mean this is a performance that I believe in, and I think this person skyrocketed in value. And at the same time, where you can fit them into royales, I would recommend going for them. And in this particular case, we've got Crimzo. Crimzo is one of those who we've always kind of seen as he was racking up stats last year on a really struggling Dallas team, but we're seeing him as a strong point on this Houston roster now. He was regularly sleeping fearless in some really big situations here, and also landing nades left and right, not to mention flexibility on multiple heroes here. So even as his team's getting naded, he lands a big one on Fielder, and then as you saw earlier, he's sleeping fearless as well. So Crimzo, he looks to be a strong spot on this unexpectedly good Houston Outlaws roster. For just one more clip of him, we see he was giving Fearless a really, really hard time. And as Fearless is diving into the back, Crimzo once again gets a nasty sleep dart nade that secures the kill against the ulting Winston. Those are the kinds of things that lock down team fights for your team, and the kinds of things that let me think that, once again, with the Outlaws looking to be a sustainably good team, Crimzo's going to return some serious value in the upcoming weeks. My last don't let go of the week is one happy. If there's one headline for the week, it's probably happy. This is quite possibly, after the ChoiSehWan clip that I led with, my favorite kill of the week. I like to think Happy is out here just skeet shooting some clay pigeons. Not the fastest, most dangerous main support Lucio in the league. Happy 2-taps him in incredible fashion. Insane reaction time. Now, I have a short discourse here on Happy. He's outperforming what I thought he would, and I feel a little bit guilty that I didn't rank him higher. Now, if you see where I rank him, I actually had him pretty solidly high, but I don't think we could have really, I don't think we could have. We could have predicted this, but this is heavy on the Scrimbucks exchange here too. Happy, since Season 2, has been one of the best hit scan players. If you remember, I believe it's accurate in saying that he was in the finals against DM in the Season 2 Widow battles, show match, and he has always been one of the absolute best Widows in hit scans in the league. But if we look at his performances last year, he was often stubbornly playing the Widow in bad situations, just trying to, hero ball it for his team. And I think we're seeing the improved play of Happy is not all of a sudden Happy becoming good. He's always been good. We're seeing where good coaching, good tank play, and star skill level are all meeting in the middle. And I see a very bright year here for Happy. If we think about prior years, I feel like he could be recreating the Birdring effect from last year, where there's a player that comes with some high risk, high reward, and as the primary hit scan on his team, he's probably going to be near unbenchable. Not only does he have the McCree, the Widow, the Ashe locked down for his team, oh my gosh, his Hanzo is absolutely insane too. And this 5K was really par for the course for the day, where he's just regularly hitting shots that another human being should not be able to hit. So I'm very bullish on Happy, as of course everybody is. I'm not telling you anything you don't know if you haven't watched week 1, but I'm saying I believe in the long-term value here, and I now move him to near the very top of the list of all Overwatch DPS player value for the season. Very excited to see what's to come, and hope this is something that he can sustain, because I like to see some more of that. There were plenty of other fun storylines from the week, like Violet playing DPS. Some other frustrating ones, like the continued flex support black hole that Repel has become over the past couple of years, splitting time with whoever his counterpart is, and ruining both of their fantasy values, but still being quite the underrated flex support. So I'll be here rooting for Violet to to play some more McCree. Rooting for Dallas to pull things through with Eggsy's exit. And, plenty of other storylines. Nero, Lastro, and Aztec. Fitz's struggles. Kevster, Amir, and Birdring all splitting playtime. There's so many things to talk through. So, if there are any other fantasy-related questions, my promise to you is that I will answer 100% of those in the comments because I love talking fantasy. Flame and other posts, I'll go through it all. And if you're flaming me, I'll enjoy flaming you back. So, hope you enjoyed the first week of Overwatch. What a fantastic treat. Good to be back. Expect more of these on about a weekly basis coming from me, as well as follow me on Twitter for other thoughts on any writing that I do, other more stat-centric articles or analysis that I do using Stats Lab, but most of all, for the clips and watching Overwatch, so that when you're too lazy or too busy to watch all the matches, you know, hey, I've watched them, and you can ask me for my mediocre fantasy Overwatch advice as a result. Have a good week, everybody.